Buenos días.
Good morning.
Bueno, en primer lugar,
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize on behalf of Ángel Castillo Talavera, the director of the Institute, who actually could not avoid having to leave, and he could not make it. I will be doing it. I am Juan Quepodellano from the Institute, and I am in charge of construction quality. So I'm just going to welcome you all and hope that this conference that we organized with much hope and joy actually is as fruitful as we expect it to be. And I will be giving the floor to all the people around the table here today, whom I thank for being here. Vega, Catalán, who is the Vice Director of the Ministry of Transportation and Mobility. Javier Pinilla García, who is the Director of the National Institute on Health and Safety. Jesús, Ángel, Celada, Pérez, the General Director for Support Policies in Cases of Disabilities. And José Luis Parra y Alfaro, the Director of the School of Engineers, of Energy and Mines Engineers of the Polytechnic University of Madrid. Mr. Richard Baumann, the Chair of the Slip, Trips and Falls Technical Committee of the International Economics Association, and Miguel Sánchez Fernández, who is the President of the Slips Resistance Group of Spain, which is the association that has organized this Congress. So, Luis? Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Institute for the invitation so that I could participate in this opening ceremony. And I wanted to congratulate you for celebrating here in Spain a Congress of these characteristics. I know how difficult it is to organize these events and how important it is to bring to Spain these events and being able to participate in them. So I'm going to be very brief. I just wanted to share a few words with regards to the matter at hand. We are the regulatory sector in the Ministry of Public Works. Everything that has to do with accidents, that have to do with the use of the building is something that we consider a priority, and that in 1996 was actually a novelty in the regulatory framework, since we had no aspects considered in our document for accessibility and safety. So with regards to safety, there's always a trend to focus on aspects that have to do with other matters, such as structural safety or fires, that quite possibly, with regards to accidents, have a very strong impact because they generate deaths and so on. But we have to recognize that accidents that have to do with the mere use of buildings is also widespread, and it can also be very serious. So this is an element that we should destine most of our efforts to. And I wanted to say that one of the things that make it really complicated to regulate this framework, which we believe is necessary to guarantee the quality of life within our workplace, is usually the fact that we don't know the matters enough. We don't have a good regulation at the law level, and in that sense, initiatives such as this one that will spread the knowledge and will allow us to make progress in knowing certain aspects such as slipperiness, knowing certain factors, I'm sure will help shed some light and keep on making progress and keep on having a consistent and in-depth regulation with regards to the needs that derive from this. So it's actually my personal interest as a representative of the ministry that these topics advance. So I congratulate you for organizing this conference, and I hope that we will draw some very interesting conclusions. Thank you very much.
Gracias,
Thank you, Luis. Javier Pinilla, I give you the floor. Please turn the microphone on. Okay, good morning. First of all, congratulations to the organizers of this conference, who are at my left and my right, actually. And congratulations for having drawn such an attractive agenda for today's conference. And amongst the topics that you're going to be tackling, there are some topics that the National Institute for Health and Safety, there are some that really interest us, those that have to do with accidents due to falls at the same level or different levels. According to the data that we gathered at the National Institute, during 2018, there were in Spain 86,000 work accidents due to falls from a higher level or the same level, which represents 17% of all the workplace accidents, excluding those accidents during transportation, which have a different consideration, and not traumatic accidents that usually are due to different causes different to those of normal accidents. 61 workers died during 2018 due to these accidents. Workplace accidents take place in all sectors, but those that are deathly usually concentrate in the sector of construction, 78%, in the sector of services industry, 24%, and agricultural, 13%. So accidents due to falls from a different level are usually very serious due to their serious consequences, and they entail a great cost for the social security system and obviously dramatic circumstances for the person who suffered the accident, their family, their colleagues, and they have an impact in the life and culture of the company itself. That is why fighting against them is a priority in the work that we do at the Institute of Health and Safety. According to the data of analysis of these accidents during a recent period, from 2015 till 2018, the main causes have been falls due to works with ladders, with scaffolding, through holes and horizontal accidents as well. So this is a problem that worries us, that has worried us for a very long time, and that is why we carry out technical and dissemination activities of different kinds related to the design of the workplace, as well as establishing protocols that integrate preventive measures. We have to highlight the fact that the preventive principles, which are the Bible that guides us all, that guides all preventionists and health and safety people in companies, and that is why the first commandment is that risks have to be avoided at origin, and that is why we are making a special effort trying to improve and promote the fact that maintenance workers in roofing work with more safety measures, because these works in roofs represent 50 accidents per year that are either deadly or serious. That is why in 2019, during the works that we carried out with the autonomous regions, we started a campaign called Working in Roofings, which is something that we worked on, explaining that what's important is to come out of it alive. This campaign was designed to improve the technical knowledge of designers and the companies that work on roofing so that they are done in a safe manner. We think that this conference is a great opportunity to give visibility to this problem, as well as many others that have to do with it, and so that we can highlight the value of the collaborations of entities and institutions that work together. I obviously hope that you will really learn from the presentations and communications that will be shared here during these 2 days conference, so that you can then put them in place in your workplace in order to improve the life of people in general and workers more particularly. So you will always have a colleague, a partner to collaborate with you in this work at the Institute of Health and Safety. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Javier. I will now give the floor to Mr. Jesús Ángel Celada Pérez. Thank you.
Sí, buenos días.
Good morning.
a todas y a
Good
todos,
morning, everyone.
Y agradecer a los
I
organizadores
wanted to
que
thank the
hayan contado con la
organizers
Dirección General
for
de
having
Políticas de
invited the
Discapacidad y
General
Dirección General
Directorate
también,
for
Dirección del
policies
Patronato
with
sobre
regards to
Discapacidad, que somos dos
disabilities.
organismos
We
que trabajamos la
and the
discapacidad
Royal
en el
Patronage
ámbito de la
for
administración
Disabilities. We are
española.
two
Yo soy
institutions
director
that
de ambos
work
organismos. Me acompaña mi consejera
at
técnica del
the.
patronato, la consejera técnica del patronato
We are
Maite
two
Fernández,
Spanish
y es un
institutes,
placer, pues,
and
compartir
we are
esta
happy to
mesa,
be
¿no?
here today with you.
Yo provengo del ámbito de la
I
ingeniería
come
y
from the
circunstancias de la
world of
vida. Hace 9
engineering,
años,
and
pues,
9 years
empecé a
ago
trabajar
I
en el
started
ámbito
working
de la
in the
discapacidad
field of disabilities.
y
And
veo que hay
I
público que
see
procede de otros países, con
that
lo cual es
there
bueno hacer un
is
contexto
public
de
coming
cómo está
from
la
other
discapacidad en
countries, so
España,
I
¿no? Que son
think
las
I
mismas
should
preguntas
draw
que yo me
the
hice cuando llegué
context
a
of
este
how
sector.
disability
La
is
primera
in
es cuántos
Spain.
son.
First of
En
all, how
España
many
hay
people with
aproximadamente
disabilities
3,8
there are. There are
millones de
3.8
personas
million
con
people
discapacidad,
with
aproximadamente
disabilities in
un
Spain,
8% de la población.
8% of
De
the
esos
population.
3,8
Out of
millones,
those 3.8 million
1,8,
people,
cerca de
1.8,
los 2 millones,
that's close to
están
2
en el
million
laboral entre 16 y
are
65
in
años.
working age from
La siguiente
16
pregunta
to
era
65
¿cómo
years
se
old.
organizan?
And
En
the question is
España
how they're
es
organized
verdad
in
que
Spain.
tenemos
Well,
un
it's
tejido
true that
asociativo
we
en torno a la
have
discapacidad,
a
una
very
sociedad civil
tight
organizada muy
association
sólida, muy
fabric
consolidada,
amongst
con muchos años de historia.
people with
Hay una
disabilities. It's
entidad que se llama el CERMI, que
there
es
is the
la
CERMI, which is
entidad
an
que
entity
representa
which
a todo el
represents
colectivo de
the
personas con
whole collective
discapacidad,
of
a
people with
esos cerca
disabilities,
de 4 millones de
those
personas con
close to 4
discapacidad,
million
11
people
si
with
sumamos a sus
disabilities,
familias,
11
con
if
lo cual en
we
uno de cada 4
consider their
hogares
families as well.
convive la
So in
discapacidad.
1 out of 4
Ese
homes,
CERMI, que
there
es
is someone
la
with
plataforma que
disability.
representa toda la
CERMI
discapacidad en
is the
España,
platform
es
that
fruto
represents all
del
disability in
trabajo de
Spain.
muchas entidades que
It is
llevan
the
más de
fruit
80 años
of the
trabajando la
work of
discapacidad en
many
España, entre
associations that
otras la
have been
ONCE,
working for
que es una
over 80 years
institución
in Spain on
bien
disabilities, amongst
reconocida
them
no solo en
ONCE, which
España,
is a
sino fuera
Spanish
de nuestro país,
association that is
y gracias a
also
ese
very
trabajo
well
de
known
más de 80
outside
años
of
de
Spain.
historia
And
que ha
thanks to
desarrollado la
this
ONCE,
80 years
junto con
work
otras entidades
that
también
ONCE has
sectoriales
developed
por tipos de
with
discapacidad,
other
hace
sectorial
22 años
disabilities,
se crea el CERMI
I'm sorry,
como
disabilities
representante de la
associations,
discapacidad en España.
created CERMI as
La tercera
representing
pregunta era qué
disabilities in Spain
preocupaciones
in
tienen.
general.
Ya sabemos
And the
cuántos
second
son,
question
sabemos
is,
cómo se
what
organizan, que
are
es
their
un
worries?
músculo,
We know
un
who
tejido
they are, we
asociativo
know how
potente,
they
fuerte.
associate themselves,
Y la tercera
and
pregunta fue
the
qué
third question
preocupaciones
was,
tenía el
what are their
sector.
worries? What worries
Es
them?
verdad
What
que el
does
que
the
la
worry
persona que no
the
haya
sector?
trabajado en el ámbito de la
It's true that
discapacidad, a
people who
priori
haven't
pensamos
worked
que la
in the
preocupación
field
de
of
las personas con
disability
discapacidad en España
think
pudiera
that
ser
people
la
with
asistencial,
disabilities
la del
think
cuidado,
of
la de la
assistance
protección,
mainly,
la
care,
de que me cuiden,
protection,
y
to
la
be
sorpresa
cared
mía
for.
fue
But my
ver que el
surprise was
colectivo
to see that this
tenía dos
collective
demandas muy
had
claras.
two
Una
clear
era la
demands. The
formación y
first
la
one
otra era
was
el empleo.
training, and the second one was
Eso
employment.
me hacía pensar,
And
me hizo
that made
pensar y
me
dije, bueno,
think,
pues
well,
primero que nos iguala,
first of all,
¿quién que no está en esta sala se ha preocupado
who
por la
has
formación y por
ever
el empleo? Con lo cual, algo bueno habremos
thought
hecho en
that
España
they
cuando
were thinking about
mayoritariamente el
training?
tejido
Well,
de la
we must have done
discapacidad
something good
español
if the
está preocupado por
fabric of
formarse y por
disability
trabajar.
is worried about
La
training
segunda fue
themselves
que por qué
and
tenían esa
working.
preocupación,
And the
aparte de la
second
evidente y
thing
de la
I
vital,
wondered
¿no?
was,
Pues
why
la
do they
tenían por
have
dos
this
razones. La
demand? Well,
primera,
it's due to two things,
porque
two
las
reasons.
cifras es verdad que
First of
tanto
all,
en
because the
formación como en empleo
figures
las personas con
in
discapacidad
training and
están muy
employment
atrás respecto a la
are
población
lagging
sin
behind
discapacidad,
amongst people
tanto
with
en el acceso,
disabilities
sobre
when
todo a los
compared to
estudios
people without
superiores,
disabilities.
como en el
For
acceso al
instance,
empleo,
access
ese
to
1,8
higher
millones de
studies and
personas
employment,
en
that
edad laboral
1.8 million
tienen casi
people
20
who are
puntos más
of a
de
working
paro que
age
el resto de la
usually
población, con
have
lo cual es
six
preocupante, las
basic
cifras son
basic
preocupantes,
points
pero la
more
segunda
of
preocupación
unemployment
es
than
la
the general
accesibilidad.
population, and then there
Se
is
encuentran con entornos en los
access
que el
to
empleo y la formación
work
son
and
hostiles para
employment.
poder
They
desarrollar
see that
esas dos
these sectors
actividades,
are
¿no? Con
hostile
lo
and
cual
they
es
cannot
preocupante
develop
también
these
no solo
two
abordar el
activities.
empleo de
So
las personas
it's
con
not
discapacidad
just
y su
about
formación,
tackling
sino
employment
también el desarrollar entornos que sean
of people with
accesibles y
disabilities,
seguros
but also
para poder
developing
desarrollar la
environments
actividad
that
de
are
la formación,
accessible and
la
safe
educación y el
to
empleo.
develop
Respecto a la primera cuestión, es
training,
decir, qué bien
training
que hayamos
activities
hecho
and
en España
employment
algo
activities.
para que las
So
personas con
it's
discapacidad tengan
good
esta
the fact
preocupación.
that
Es
people with
evidente, nos vamos a
disabilities
la
in
legislación
Spain
española.
worry
En el año
mainly
82
about
se crea
that,
una
but
ley que
that's
es
due to the fact that in
LISMI, que obliga
1982
que el 2%
we passed a
de
law
las
in
empresas con
Spain
más de
that
50
forces
trabajadores sean
companies with
contratadas
more than
personas con
2
discapacidad, un
workers
2%,
to
que es lo que se conoce como la cuota.
to
Y la ley
hire
también,
someone with
con los años,
disabilities.
se
That's
dio
our
cabida
2% 50% quota. And then we have special employment centers, a formula that is very successful in Spain, that other countries are trying to copy. These are centers where over 70% of the workers have some sort of disability. Now, 20 years later, in 1982, in 1982 they started working, and 20 years later, empowered disability workers wanted to have a normal activities, leisure, training, culture, to keep on enjoying life. And the year 2003, there was a new law in DAO which establishes a series of principles. One of them is cross-cuttingness. People with disabilities are getting out out of centers, of day centers. They want to have an independent life and they want to develop other activities. So it's important to guarantee their access to those activities. So this law establishes this principle, universal access to other sectors that are not necessarily that of health or care. So now they should have access to technologies, university, training, so your day-to-day. And ever since 2003, this diversity law is very important, thanks to the promotion of CERMI and the whole disability community. We are now developing a second accessibility plan, and at the administration we are working together with the associations for the development of this second national plan for accessibility that is still pending improvement, but we're working on its execution already. In the accessibility plan, we worry about many things. First of all, physical access. Physical accessibility, it's still a problem in Spain, although there were other laws, such as the general law for disabilities, people's rights, that includes the convention, the International Convention of People with Disabilities, that forced from 2017 onwards all spaces to be accessible. And it is true that currently public and private spaces still do not all abide by this law. There is an association called CEPAO that will participate in one of the round table. We'll talk about these things. So it's not just a physical accessibility, but there's also a cognitive accessibility. People with intellectual disabilities also are part of the workforce. They want to have a normal life, and they need to have safe spaces and accessible spaces from a cognitive standpoint. We are worried about this, and we work on this regulation. This year, Spain will present for the first time in the world an ISO rule with regards to tourism that was promoted by the Royal Patronage on Disability and ONCE Foundation. We also do courses with the Royal Patronage together with ONCE to train our future engineers, not just our engineers, but also from other professions with regards to accessibility. And we are working so that all university degrees include professionals who are trained in the field of accessibility. And we worry about our collaboration with other public associations and entities. It's not just about us working on it. Other ministries, other bodies, other institutions also need to be involved in accessibility. As its surname says, accessibility needs to be universal. Javier, the General Director of Health and Safety in the Workplace, talked to us about a campaign that has to do with safety of people who are now part of the professional world. So it's very important that you have given us this space, trying to build bridges between disabilities and other sectors, and I hope that this will be a prosperous Congress and that we will draw important conclusions from it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jesús. I will now give the floor to Mr. José Luis Parra y Alfaro.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I would like to, first of all, thank the organizers of this Congress and the association, dear friend Miguel Sánchez, and obviously the Eduardo Torroja Institute for hosting this conference. And I would like to thank you for having invited me to be a part of this round table. As the General Director of the Mines and Energy Engineers of the Polytechnic University of Madrid, we are very much interested by this topic. The two aspects are put on the table that are part of our main worries, which are, first of all, safety and prevention, and on the other hand, knowing materials. In this case, our approach to this topic is mainly from the materials point of view and how we can treat them to make sure that materials are relevant in our fight against these accidents. So at the official laboratory, the OENCO, Well, Mr. Fernando Martín, the director, will be at this Congress during the whole duration of it. And we're carrying out studies at the laboratory that have to do with everything that has to do with slipperiness and so on. So we have done it for many years now. And there's nothing for me to say but to hope that this Congress will be very successful. This evening we will actually have the honor of hosting at our house the dinner of the Congress. So I hope you will all be able to be there and enjoy our being at our house. So that's all I wanted to say. I hope this is a very fruitful Congress. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, José Luis. I will now give the floor to Richard Bauman.
Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
It's a great honor to
Es un
be
gran
here.
honor estar aquí
As the chair of
como
the
presidente
International
de
Ergonomics Association,
la Asociación
Technical
Ergonómica
Committee on
y
Slips
del
and Falls.
Comité
When I
Técnico
was
de,
asked to become the chair, I took, a couple of days
resbalones,
to think
tropezones y
about it
caídas.
before taking
Les
it
dije
on.
que por favor me dieran unos días para pensarme si quería participar, porque el comité no se encontraba en su mejor momento. Ya llevábamos bastantes años de existencia y los miembros del instituto estaban un poquito cansados y ya no estaban tan llenos de energía. Y yo pensaba más bien, ¿qué es lo que puedo hacer yo? ¿Qué oportunidad veo en esto? No para mí tanto, no tanto para mí, sino como para ver si podíamos hacer algo con este comité y hacer algo positivo. Bien, pues lo que hice, junto con Steve Thorpe del Reino Unido, del grupo del Reino Unido de resistencia a los resbalones que está entre el público, dio una conferencia en 2016 donde conocí a Juan por primera vez y a Raquel y a Elena. Y fue una conferencia muy positiva. Y esta conferencia en la que nos encontramos hoy aquí está muy inspirada en aquella conferencia de la que hablo. Tenemos a personas que están totalmente centradas en las caídas desde cubiertas. Y si esta conferencia la hiciésemos en Japón, estarían encantados porque están muy centrados en este tema. En todas las conferencias, en cambio, decidimos que sea el anfitrión quien identifique los temas más relevantes para ellos, para que no sean simplemente expertos internacionales dando charlas sobre cosas que a lo mejor no son relevantes para el anfitrión, el país anfitrión. Necesitamos que sea algo que permita a la gente identificar lo que se ha hecho en otros países, lo que es importante allí, y eso es lo que nos permiten estas presentaciones tan cortas. La última conferencia la hicimos en Toronto. Los anfitriones eran sobre todo personas que trabajaban en el sector médico y por eso nos centramos en los accidentes entre la población que va envejeciendo. Veo una foto del Michelangelo de David, que tiene un aspecto estupendo. También tengo otras fotos que he enviado del 8 de julio de 1994 y me recuerda que por ahora mi cuerpo es capaz, igual no tan capaz como lo era anteriormente, hay una progresión en la vida y tenemos que ir modificando nuestro entorno para poder todos beneficiarnos de él. A menudo es difícil. Y tengo otra cosa de la que hablaré dentro de un segundo aquí, que es la seducción. La seducción es muy importante en la vida. En parte es cómo vamos avanzando, pero la seducción es realmente la intención de introducir ideas peliagudas en la mente de otras personas utilizando nuestro encanto. Y espero que todas esas ideas peliagudas, las ideas individuales que todos nosotros tenemos, que defienden nuestros valores y nuestra visión de cómo debería ser el mundo, puedan introducirse en las cabezas de los demás. Tenemos que escuchar con atención, porque a lo mejor tenemos ideas diferentes, pero todos tenemos propósitos similares y todos estamos intentando que el mundo sea un lugar mejor, no para nosotros mismos, sino para otras personas. Y esto me recuerda a algo que el capitán Chesley Sullenberger dijo. Él fue el piloto que consiguió aterrizar de forma forzosa su avión, bueno, amerizar su avión en el río Hudson, salvando muchas vidas. Y cuando lo hizo, pensó en lo que había hecho. Y después llegó a la conclusión de que no importa el lugar en el que nos encontramos en la vida, no importa el título que tengamos, todos nosotros podemos afectar o tener un impacto en el mundo o controlar parte del mundo, y tenemos la obligación de utilizar esa influencia en esa parte del mundo. Y cuando decidimos que iluminar y hacer que la parte del mundo sobre la que tenemos un control sea segura y sea más feliz, tenemos una influencia positiva, y si todos actuamos de la misma manera podemos marcar la diferencia. Creo que durante estos 2 próximos días todos vamos a conseguir logros en ese sentido. Quiero agradecer a los distinguidos dignatarios y a las autoridades presentes aquí hoy. Señoras y señores, gracias por haber venido.
Y por último, Miguel Sánchez.
And lastly, Mr. Miguel Sánchez Fernández, I give you the floor.
Lo primero,
Okay, so first of all,
agradeceros a
I
todos
wanted to
vosotros
thank you all
esta inauguración que
for
habéis
this opening
realizado.
ceremony that you have
Para nosotros
carried
es un honor
out.
que
It is an
nos
honor
hayáis
for us
acompañado
to have you here
en la
with us
inauguración.
in this opening
Sí
ceremony.
quiero también agradecer a
I also
todos
wanted to
los
thank
asistentes
all
y
the
participáis con vuestras
participants
comunicaciones,
and all the
vuestra presencia,
members of
puesto
the
que sois los
audience
que al final
for
sois el
being
motor
here, for those of you who will
constante de
participate
esta
with your presentations, and for those of you who will be here listening. You
Y
are
en
all
último
the
lugar,
engine of this evolution. And
quería
lastly,
también
I
agradeceros
wanted
que,
to also thank
han trabajado en el
those who
terreno.
have worked
La Junta
on the
Directiva
field.
de
The steering
Resistance
committee
en España,
of
cuando eligió
Slips
presidente,
Resistance in
yo creo que
Spain, when
dijeron que como Miguel
they
está llegando
appointed
al
me
nivel
as
de
president, they
incompetencia
thought
máximo,
that they
pues
had
por lo menos lo hacemos presidente,
that
así no
since
molesta.
Miguel is completely
Y yo creo que
incompetent, we will
acertaron,
just
porque ellos
appoint
lo
him as
están haciendo
president.
muy
That
bien.
way he will not bother me,
En
will
especial
not bother
a
us, sorry. And I
Raquel,
think it was the best decision that they made.
García,
So I
Domingo,
wanted to
Dani, y
thank
cómo no,
Raquel,
nuestro querido
Juan, Domingo, and
Julia,
our dear Juan Julia,
que tiene un
who-
especial cariño por nuestra parte en
who
este momento.
is someone we
Y
dearly love.
siempre
And-
bajo esa tutela
And always
de
under
que normalmente la probabilidad se reparte
that
cuando uno
guiding
sale
principle
incompetente, sale
that
otro competente.
when an incompetent gets out of the institution, someone competent will come in. And since I am incompetent, we have someone competent who is Richard Bauman, who will look over us and protect us. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Me gustaría simplemente decir que fui presidente honorario y dije, ¿qué hace un presidente honorario? Y me dijeron, no hace gran cosa. Así que es realmente el comité el que ha realizado todo el trabajo duro y les felicito por todo el trabajo que han realizado y cómo lo han hecho, sobre todo teniendo en cuenta las circunstancias, y he de decir que ha sido maravilloso el trabajo que han hecho. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.